Hello and welcome. We are in conversation with a very illustrious and a very special personality, Dr. Raghuram Rajan, now the Chief Economic Advisor to the Finance Ministry. He is the man who had predicted the 2009 crisis. Let's go over to him straight and try and get his views on his assessment of the Indian economy right now, sir. We all know that we are going through a difficult patch. When do you expect this patch to kind of start tapering off, and what can we expect in terms of the growth rates, at least for this fiscal, and some kind of a roadmap for the next 18 odd months?
Well, first I think the slowdown is partly worldwide, so a lot depends as much as what happens outside our economy as what happens inside. It's hard to say when the United States, when Europe are going to recover. The United States is doing okay. Europe is obviously in deeper problem. But my guess is, some of the actions we are taking domestically will also help revive growth. Amongst the things we need to do going forward, not just improve investor sentiment, but also increase the pace at which some of these projects which are stalled get unstalled and actually start picking up again. We need more investment from the private sector, more of them to start new projects, because after all, what you start now will start showing up a couple of years down the line. So, changing the investor sentiment and getting more action on the ground will be very important. I think the first step is to stabilize the slowdown in growth. As you know, growth has been coming off over the last year and a half or so. So stabilizing it and then starting picking up again is something that is quite important. I mean, I don't see a great reason to disagree with the estimates that are out there of growth this year. The range, private sector estimates are about 5.5. Estimates from other, parts of the government, 6.5. So somewhere in between there is presumably where we will land up, with hopefully more upside because of what we've done over the last few weeks and what hopefully we will do going forward. The major aim of the economy has to be to get back to the heady 8-9% growth rate that we had, and how long we take to get back to that is really the important question.
Yes, sir. So any kind of a time frame that we are looking at as of now, say over the next 18 months probably, for us to come out of the rough patch?
A lot of what is going to happen is to some extent set in place by what, actions that happened over the last 6 to 12 months. For example, investment. The big slowdown, as you know, has been in corporate investment. How do you rebuild corporate investment? You set the conditions, but investment doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to plan out a new project. So, any ramp back up will be slower than, it's not going to happen overnight. The pace obviously will accelerate as sentiment becomes more enthusiastic. And so my sense is that if we do everything that we are supposed to do, hopefully in a couple of years we should be back at the very strong growth rates we were at before we went down. And hopefully that will also be the time frame in which things like inflation become well under control.
So are we looking at a longer time frame of over 18 months to actually come out of this slowdown?
It's not clear. I think the immediate effects on sentiment will start showing up in slightly stronger growth rates than we anticipate. You first want to put a bottom to the growth and then start picking up. So my sense is you're going to start seeing some effects. But I think, getting back from what is a 6.5 pace to 8, 9
plus,
is a process of time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Right, sir. So where do we expect the growth number to settle in the current year? You have mentioned that somewhere between 5.5.
I'm going to give you a wide range.
That's a very long range.
I'm going to give you a wide range simply because
something more realistic.
You said realistic. That's different from accurate. I think what you're looking for is an accurate number, and in in a situation where there's so much change happening, external as well as domestic, it's very hard to be accurate. I can throw out a number, you'll take it home, you'll send it to your viewers, but it doesn't mean anything. We will have to revise it a few months from now because of what's happening internationally, what's happening domestically, because I expect some of the change will happen domestically. So I would say, take the range. Given the uncertainties right now, that's a good enough range. But hopefully we move to the upper end, even beyond the upper end, if we do things right.
But 5.5%, is that the bottom?
I didn't say 5, I said a range.
I mean, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But the Q1 numbers which have come out, so do we see 5.5 as the bottom? So can we say that we have bottomed out? Or there is still a downside risk?
Because the world economy has been slowing pretty rapidly into summer. So even if you take away any Indian problems, the fact that it's slowed into summer, have we seen the full effects in the Indian economy? It's hard to say. So we have to sort of be open to the possibility that things could get a little worse. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying we have to be open to the possibility.
Sir, internationally, the crude prices right now are still pretty high. I mean, they seem to be at elevated levels above 100. Though, of course, our budget estimates were at $115 per barrel. How do you see this pass on to consumers domestically? The government has taken one measure just some time back. But what is the road forward like?
Well, I mean, there is still a substantial amount of subsidy when you look at diesel, when you look at kerosene, when you look at cooking gas. So the government has taken an important step in narrowing those subsidies. I think the longer run, we're talking medium-term vision, should be that you target the subsidies very carefully to the weakest segments of society, and everybody else moves towards paying what is a market price. Ultimately, market prices, you can't avoid the fact that world oil prices have gone up, and undoubtedly it's very painful for the middle class family to absorb the high cost market price of gas cylinders, market price of petrol, and so on. But what do? If we have to, in a sense, continue subsidizing that in a big way across the middle class, that's an enormous subsidy, and it's a weird form of subsidy because who's paying for it? Ultimately, the taxpayer will have to. Otherwise, we'll run larger and larger deficits, and the world would stop wanting to finance us.
Right.
So if the taxpayer is paying for it, and the taxpayer is the very same person who's getting the subsidy, why do it in the first place, get the subsidy, then pay the taxes? It's a roundabout way, it's an inefficient way. So passing it through ultimately will be important, but subsidize the really weaker segments of society who cannot afford it.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for Retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time, and Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.